the only thing I've been very clear about that, I just don't know how you break a rule to make a rule and thinking you're doing something that's going to, we've never done this.
Okay, so that is Joe Manchin, so already, but and the topic, by the way, is the filibuster and possible reform of it. So when you combine those two things, it is like chocolate and peanut butter and relish. Don't like it, I just don't like it anymore. I like the possibilities, don't like what's coming of it. Because over the last 48 hours or so, there's been a lot of conversation about yet another attempt to reform or revise or differently codify the filibuster so that literally anything can get done in what remains of Joe Biden's first term. We've already been through multiple iterations of this. An overall change to how many votes are required to end debate and allow a vote. They're not gonna do that, they're not interested. Allowing carve-outs for individual things. Sinema and Manchin and probably others, although they're not being honest about it, aren't for that. Except, by the way, they totally are, because they literally just did it a couple weeks ago for the debt ceiling to be raised. That's something that we will return to. Now, we have among the, I feel weird. I feel like I am playing into mainstream media spin in calling this a reform at all. They just want people to have to actually filibuster when they filibuster. And guess what? He's not even gonna allow that. And as he's not even allowing that, he's not even going to be minimally honest with you about what it is, because he's gonna stop it from happening while saying, oh, no, I'm totally for it. I have no problem with that. That's not the problem. It's the thing he was alluding to in the cold open. It's, you can't break a rule to make a rule. So what the hell is that cutesy thing supposed to mean? It means we cannot change any of the rules unless we get a 60 vote threshold for the rules change, which is not required, has not been required, was not required just a couple of weeks ago when again, they allowed a carve out on the filibuster rules for a raise to the debt ceiling. But now he's saying you cannot make any change to anything having to do with the filibuster unless you get 10 Republicans to sign on. And that is gonna be difficult. That's the whole reason we're having this conversation. They won't allow anything with the filibuster because they have the filibuster. And you think they're going to allow you to change the filibuster? You have to get their consent to allow a change to the rules that will allow literally anything about our Senate to actually function, thereby allowing literally anything about our entire government to function. It's not going to happen. And so he says, no talking filibuster. It is going to be a 60 vote threshold, and you do not have to actually filibuster. You do not have to be there. You don't have to hold the attention of the Senate, hold the attention of the nation. You don't have to have a minimum quorum, a minimum requirement that Republicans actually are there for this. No, it's just everything is automatically a 60 vote requirement for literally everything, and there have been a lot of ways in which their supposed devotion to the tradition of the filibuster has been absolute horse stuff. This is the most insane, because at least in the past, you had to filibuster at one point. The silent thing is like barely older than most of the people watching this show. And this is not about a filibuster. This is not about debate. This is not about like taking a stand when it's most important. This is just requiring that we accept minority rule from now on. That is all that this is. This is not about special cases of making sure that there's a check and a balance on the most extreme legislation or anything like that. It is, as long as you can maintain 40 senators, you decide if anything happens. And we already know that you don't want anything to happen. So guess what? Nothing's ever gonna happen, because already the Senate is already disproportionate in that Republicans don't have to even have 40% of the American public on their side to have 40% of the Senate. And yet that will be enough to effectively rule all. And you might think, well, okay, sure, John, that allows them to filibuster, that allows them to stop progress, which is already unacceptable and devastating. But then what about their priorities? Their priorities don't have anything to do with this. They can already do tax cuts. They've done it every time they've had a Republican president, as long as you've been alive, and they will continue to do it as long as you are alive. They will get in, they will pass literally trillions of dollars in tax cuts. The Democrats, who supposedly have staked everything on, well, what if we need the filibuster, won't be able to stop it. Trillions of dollars will fly out the door and into the pockets of the wealthiest people that our world has ever known. Filibuster's got nothing to do with it. And literally everything else that they might want will come via the Supreme Court. And they can put just random hosts from the Daily Wire on the Supreme Court if they want. Filibuster can't stop it. Filibuster's got nothing to do with it. That is all that they want. There's some other stuff that they'll talk about, sure, that'll fill the airwaves, fill the day on Fox News, and lots of right-wing blog posts will be written about it. There'll be conspiracy theories about it. It doesn't have anything to do with legislation because their priorities have nothing to do with legislation. They've got the judges, they've got the tax cuts, they've got everything that they want, and Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema know that. They agree with them. They want those same things. They want a shield against legislation ever benefiting you, ever benefiting the working class, and way beyond the working class, benefiting anyone who isn't uber wealthy. That has now been cut off. And until we replace literally every single Democrat in the Senate and make sure that all of them are as good as they need to be on this topic, then it is not going to change. And that is an incredibly difficult task, a time-consuming task, because they have found loopholes in the system. Sinema and Manchin know that they don't have to do anything. And I'm trying very hard right now to swear, and it is difficult. I hope you appreciate the effort. They can just sit there and take up space. And it will be literally years until any challenge can be waged against them. Specifically with Manchin, with how messed up our political media is and the campaign finance system in this country, no matter how unpopular he either should be or might in fact be, it'll be damn near impossible to get him out. And he doesn't even really care about it. He just become governor the next cycle. It is incredibly frustrating. And so that's where we're at. Even the most minimal reform isn't gonna happen. There's a little bit more. I'm gonna run through some graphics of how like purposefully I think insulting this is. Let's jump into it. So he's supposedly been amenable to revising the filibuster, but not outright abolishing it. But he rejected the Democrats' idea of using a simple majority vote to do so, otherwise known as the nuclear option, which is again, like at one point, using the term nuclear option actually meant something. It was supposed to represent a really big change to something. No, now it's literally anything that has a chance of allowing the government to function. That's the nuclear option. It's post-apocalyptic. The idea that the Senate would be able to pass something. He says, in relation to this, the majority of my colleagues in the Democratic Caucus have changed their minds. I respect that. They have a right to change their minds. I haven't. I hope they respect that too. I've never changed my mind on the filibuster. And you know what? I believe him. And not in that he hasn't changed what he has said about the filibuster. He has 100% changed what he said about the filibuster. Everyone was spreading this yesterday. Bold progressives, great quotes. He co-sponsored and voted in favor of Senate Resolution 21. This is back in 10 years ago, which required that senators who wish to filibuster a bill must actually take the floor and make remarks, or what I call filibustering. He was totally in favor of that. In fact, yesterday, we're not gonna play any more of his dumb face making stupid noises, but yesterday, he said he was in favor of the talking filibuster. Last year, he said he was in favor of the talking filibuster, but not like changing it via just a majority vote. That's what it is. And honestly, all of this is totally to the side of what he said about never changing his mind on the filibuster, because I think fundamentally what is on his mind about the filibuster is this is a shield against you damn peasants ever being able to exercise any power over government, no matter how much you do, no matter how much you work over years, over decades to change people's minds about particular issues, to get them to think differently about particular values, to believe that some things could actually change, that the US could catch up with any number of other advanced democracies in various areas of public policy. No matter how much you do that, no matter how much you organize, no matter how much you register people to vote, no matter how much you overcome centuries of baked in voter suppression and structural inequity that maintains minority rule in this country, no matter how much you do of all of that, we have this one extra thing that will make it functionally impossible for you to ever exercise any power. And I love it, and I will maintain it. And I will say whatever BS I have to about the talking filibuster, about thresholds or whatever, it doesn't matter. I want that defense. And so, if there's a critical mass of people who won't even consider reforming the filibuster, then that is the battleground that I will fight on. And Joe Manchin did. for years. Now, like he has to retreat to, okay, I will grant you the talking filibuster, but it's all about the process of getting it. And we really need Republicans on our side to do that. And maybe I'll spend the next 3 months talking to them to try to get them to cross over. And we know exactly how that will end. With Joe Manchin, with Joe Biden in terms of legislation, he ran and got a lot of positive press from mainstream media for being the guy who was going to be able to work with Republicans and get them to cross over. Like Obama before him, actually. And in neither case did it work. In this case, it was even more of a debacle than when Obama tried, wasting so much time and political capital. And nothing will come of that, because in 2024, when, I don't know, like Pete Buttigieg runs and he's going up against Nina Turner or AOC or God, I don't know. The mainstream media will once again say, well, Buttigieg is the one who can unite us. He's the one who will extend a hand to the Republicans, and we will potentially waste more time. We won't have to in practice because he won't win, but that is what we're looking at. And along the way, we'll have to hear quotes like this from Joe Manchin, who says, there's no checks and balances in this process. The only thing we have is the filibuster. And if you have a situation we have right now where you have the executive branch of government and you have Congress, the House and the Senate, and they're all the same, and there's no check and balance because basically things just sweep right through, and the same thing could happen if Republicans had everything. You have the Congress, the House, and the Senate because the people for literally years over multiple elections have told you we don't like what they're doing and we want a change. What more must they do? And he doesn't care about that. He understands that. He doesn't want them to win. He doesn't care what they think. He doesn't care what they want. There's no check and balance for the elites to stop any change from happening, any threat to their economic position, the dominance that they have over our government and over our country. That is what he wants. And again, the reason I read the last part of that quote, the things just sweep right through. Yes, that is definitely what I would characterize the US Senate as being, is too much is done too quickly. He says, and the same thing could happen if Republicans had everything. I want you to be ready to respond to that, not just from total liars like Joe Manchin or massive liars on the right, but some people who you might agree with on some things politically, like so-called Democratic moderates or centrists, or even some liberals. They will be won over by that argument, the idea that things could swing back. There are a lot of great responses to that. We don't have time to go back over all of them. I will say one thing is, if you're worried about things swinging back, you are guaranteeing that they will, because nothing is being done. It is clear what the American people think about that when you look at the polls. The second is what I talked about earlier, in that they already have carve outs for literally everything that they want to do. And all the other like social stuff, which I think rightfully a lot of people are worried about. Whether it's race-based voter suppression, stripping away of reproductive rights. Again, they don't care about the filibuster for that. They don't need to make these things federal law. They've got the Supreme Court in position to either legislate from the bench, which they've said that they're always against, or at least as a defense that allows state legislators and state Supreme Courts to enforce all of that social stuff themselves. And you can challenge it if you want. You can go through courts of appeals and everything. It will get to the Supreme Court where they have a conservative supermajority and they will be allowed to do whatever they want. They have the tax cuts, they have the judges, and they have the ability at the state level to make the country into the Handmaid's Tale or Children of Men or whatever the hell they want. They can do it all. So that point from Manchin is a lie and stupid. It's both of those things, and you're gonna hear it a lot, so you better be ready.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.